Humanity's representatives stood in stunned silence. In the grand, opulent chamber of the Galactic Council, the decree had just been read aloud. Humanity's interference in galactic affairs has crossed the line. Effective immediately, all human representatives are expelled from the Galactic Council. You are hereby banned from engaging in any political, military, or diplomatic activity in the galaxy. The room was cold, its atmosphere suffocating, despite the glowing screens and the alien figures seated in their grand chairs. The Salzar, with their shimmering translucent skin, looked upon humanity with disdain. The Vrelians, their bipedal forms towering and rigid, gave not a single gesture of empathy. The other species of the council, too, offered nothing but indifferent stares. But for Captain Aidan Gray, the human representative who had traveled halfway across the galaxy for this moment, it was an act of betrayal that sparked something deep inside him. He had thought the Galactic Council was meant to bring balance, to create harmony in the stars. Instead, humanity had become a mere pawn, a force too unpredictable for their structured vision of the universe. I understand your decision, but you're making a grave mistake, Aidan said, his voice steady, though he could feel the heat of anger rising within him. We only acted to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. This isn't interference, it's compassion. Humanity will never stand by and watch innocents suffer. A holographic figure, the council's speaker, flickered to life, a being of gleaming silver, with a face that was more a mask of energy than flesh, spoke in a calm, almost mechanical tone. Your actions have destabilized the region, Captain Gray. The Xoreth conflict was handled perfectly without your involvement. Humanity's recklessness threatens the delicate balance we have fought for eons to maintain. You are unfit to be part of this coalition. The finality in the speaker's voice sent a cold shiver through the room. Captain Gray's fist clenched at his side, but he knew the truth. Humanity had done something the galaxy wasn't prepared for. The Council had taken the side of those who would exploit the vulnerable, and humanity had taken a stand. It was something they had always done, fighting for those who could not fight for themselves. And now, they had been cast out for it. I see, Aidan said, his voice colder now. Then you've made your choice. We'll make ours. As he turned to leave, the weight of the decision hit him. There would be no turning back. Humanity would be alone in the vastness of space, but they were never weak. A fire burned in his chest. This rejection would not break them. It would forge them into something new. He could already see it, a new era for humanity, one that wouldn't bow to the old powers of the galaxy. Outside the chamber, Aidan's team gathered in silence. What now? Asked Lieutenant Ilara Quinn. Her eyes narrowed, determined yet uncertain. We fight, Captain Gray said, his voice steady. We build, and we show the galaxy what it means to challenge us. We'll forge our own destiny, starting today. As the doors of the council chamber closed behind them, the seeds of an empire were sown. Humanity was no longer part of the Galactic Council, but they would rise in their own way. The galaxy had made a mistake, one they would soon regret. The cold silence in the wake of their expulsion was unbearable. Humanity had just been cast aside by the Galactic Council, the very institution they had aspired to join. But for the leaders of the United Human Federation, UHF, it was not a moment of defeat, it was the spark of a new beginning. Aboard the flagship Unity, a vessel that had once symbolized humanity's first steps into the galaxy, a secret meeting was taking place. It was here that Earth's fractured political landscape would be molded into something greater. Look at the situation we're in, President Claire Foster said, her voice low but firm. The Council has shown us that they don't care about justice. They care about control. And we, humanity, are not going to bend to their will. Around her, a diverse group of the world's most brilliant minds, military strategists, diplomats, scientists, and leaders, gathered. Nations that once stood divided by borders, ideology, and resources were now united under one banner. There were no more nations, only one human future. The expulsion had become their rallying cry. The UHF was born, and it was born out of necessity, not just pride. "What are we going to do?" asked General Marcos Rivera, his brow furrowed in thought. "We have no formal alliances. We're cut off from trade routes. The Council's fleets could wipe us out in the blink of an eye." "We will not be crushed," Captain Aidan Gray interjected, his words sharp, cutting through the growing tension. "The Council has made a mistake, but we'll show them that we're more than just a thorn in their side. We will take what they fear, our independence." "How do we begin?" asked Dr. Celine Rios, the Federation's chief scientist. Her fingers danced across a holographic interface, pulling up images of distant star systems. "We'll need resources, a military strong enough to stand against the Council's might, and allies, not just from Earth, but from other worlds." Foster looked over at Rios, her eyes narrowing. "You're right. We need more than just the strength to survive. We need a new vision for the galaxy. One where we build, where we grow, and where we do not bow to anyone. We need to start by expanding, finding new territories, systems that are unclaimed, or better yet, those under the thumb of corrupt powers who will join us if we give them a chance." There was a murmur of agreement around the table. Humanity wasn't going to shrink away in fear. They weren't going to hide in the dark corners of the galaxy, licking their wounds. No, they would carve out their own future, one star system at a time. "We'll need a fleet," Aidan added, his voice hardening with resolve. "Our current forces are enough to defend Earth and the colonies, but we need more. I've already spoken with several factions on Earth. If we promise them autonomy and a place in the new order, they'll help us build our navy. And we need technology," Dr. Rios continued. "The Council has always kept the best advancements to themselves, but humanity has always been resourceful. We can reverse engineer their technology, improve upon it." "Then it's settled," President Foster declared, standing from her seat, her eyes gleaming with determination. "We begin now. We'll create the human fleet, establish new colonies, and forge alliances with anyone who believes in our vision. We will not ask for permission anymore. We will take what's ours." As the leaders began to disperse, the first glimmer of hope began to take root in the hearts of humanity. The galaxy had cast them aside, but that rejection was the crucible in which a new, stronger civilization would be forged. Their destiny was now in their own hands. Outside the conference room, Aidan stared out of the viewport at the vastness of space. It seemed infinite, an ocean of stars waiting to be explored. The galaxy had underestimated them, but the humans would show it the strength that came from the most unexpected place, a people who refused to be broken. "Let them try to stop us," Aidan muttered under his breath, a determined smile curling at the edge of his lips. "We're just getting started." The first steps of the United Human Federation's rise to power were cautious but determined. Humanity, cut off from the Galactic Council, now found itself standing at the precipice of the unknown, surrounded by vast stretches of uncharted space. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about making their mark, showing the galaxy that humanity would not be silenced. To start their empire, they needed resources, technology, and above all, a symbol of their resolve. Humanity's first move was simple. They would reclaim a small, uninhabited star system on the edge of known space. It was a simple operation, one of the first colonization efforts by the UAF. But this wasn't just about setting up a new settlement. They had a more audacious goal in mind. "We're going to make a statement," Captain Aidan Gray said as he reviewed the mission's plan. "The Xoreth system is just beyond the rim, and it's known to be unstable. But it's also home to a primitive species, and if we can show them what we're capable of, we'll have an ally for the future." The Xoreth were a race that had avoided any major galactic interaction. Fiercely territorial and technologically inferior, they were mostly isolated and fiercely independent. But recent intelligence had indicated that the Xoreth were sitting on rich mineral deposits that could fuel humanity's military expansion. More importantly, they were a species whose fear and mistrust could be turned into something greater, loyalty. Aidan addressed his command crew aboard the Vanguard. the Federation's flagship. We're not going to conquer them. Not just yet. We're going to show them what humanity is capable of. Let's give them a glimpse of our strength. The Federation's fleet, composed of 12 warships and a team of human diplomats, entered the Xoreth system under the cover of darkness. The plan was simple. They would offer the Xoreth an alliance, one that would free them from the interference of other galactic powers who had long ignored their suffering. It wasn't just a military maneuver. It was a statement that humanity wasn't here to dominate but to liberate. As the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, the Xoreth reacted immediately. Their defense ships, crude by galactic standards but deadly in their own right, appeared from the asteroid belt like a swarm of angry hornets. But humanity was prepared. The Vanguard deployed its anti-missile systems and fired a warning shot. The Xoreth forces hesitated. The comms officer on the Vanguard patched through to the Xoreth command ship. A gruff voice crackled over the speakers. "Who dares to enter our space?" "Humanity," Aiden replied, his voice calm but firm. "We come not to invade, but to offer a partnership. We want to help you, not enslave you." The Xoreth captain laughed bitterly. "Help? No human ever helped the Xoreth. You bring only destruction." "We bring freedom," Aiden answered, his tone unwavering. "And the chance to stand beside a new power in the galaxy. We've already seen what your enemies have done to you. Join us, and you'll have more than survival. You'll have power." For a long moment, there was silence. The Xoreth captain seemed to deliberate. Then, surprisingly, the transmission ended. "We'll show them our strength," Aiden said to his crew, more determined than ever. "And if they won't join us, we'll make sure they understand what happens when you challenge humanity." Hours later, the Xoreth returned. They had agreed to meet. The human fleet lowered their weapons, and a human delegation, led by Aiden, boarded a transport to the Xoreth homeworld. What followed was not just diplomacy, but the first of many alliances that would shape humanity's destiny in the galaxy. By the time Aiden and his team landed, it was clear. The Xoreth had underestimated humanity's resolve. The Federation's willingness to offer them power and autonomy, rather than domination, spoke volumes. Within days, the Xoreth agreed to join the UAF, marking the first victory in humanity's new chapter. As the alliance was forged, Aiden stood on the balcony of the Xoreth leader's palace, staring at the stars. This wasn't just the beginning of their empire. It was the first real glimpse of humanity's power in the galaxy. They had come to the Xoreth system as strangers, but they would leave with allies. And this was just the start. The galaxy would soon understand that humanity wasn't just a fleeting spark. It was a fire that couldn't be extinguished. In the months following their victory with the Xoreth, the United Human Federation, UHF, began to expand with unprecedented speed. The galaxy, once indifferent to humanity's presence, now had to reckon with their growing influence. Earth's leaders knew they had only one chance to establish themselves as a lasting power, and they couldn't afford hesitation. Every move had to be calculated, swift, and precise. Captain Aiden Gray stood in the command center of the Vanguard, watching as the coordinates for their next target flashed on the holographic map before him. It was a system rich in resources, mineral-rich asteroids that could fuel humanity's rapidly expanding military. But there was more to it. The Xoreth had provided intelligence on a nearby planet, an industrial world called Iraq, located within a star system under the control of the Taklor, a long-established and fiercely independent race. The Taklor had long rejected galactic cooperation, operating as a solitary power. Despite their technological advancements, they were notorious for their hostility toward any form of intervention. The Galactic Council had tried, many times, to integrate them into the fold, but the Taklor had consistently refused. However, Iraq's resources were vital to the UAF's future plans, and it was time to take action. "We can't afford to wait for them to come to the table," President Claire Foster said, standing beside Aiden as she surveyed the data. "The Taklor have been stubborn for too long. If we don't move quickly, someone else will take control of that system, and the Taklor will never bend to our will. Aiden nodded, his expression hardening. We can't give them the chance to fight back. We'll hit them hard and fast, show them exactly what humanity is capable of. A demonstration of power without unnecessary bloodshed. Once we've made our presence felt, we offer them the choice to join us, under our terms. The plan was set into motion. Within days, a combined fleet of UHF warships, bolstered by Xorith forces, began their journey toward the Orcs system. As the fleet made its approach, a message was transmitted directly to the Taklor homeworld. It was simple: join us, or face the consequences. The Taklor responded with predictable arrogance. You've overestimated your power, humans. We will not be cowed by your threats. If you dare to invade, we will wipe you from the stars. Aiden's lips curled into a smile. Let's show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. The battle that followed was swift and brutal. The UHF fleet, reinforced by Xorith ships that had learned the art of space combat under humanity's guidance, descended upon the Taklor defenses with unmatched precision. The Taklor fought fiercely, launching waves of missiles and fighters in a desperate bid to repel the invaders. But the humans had anticipated every move. Their advanced technology, gleaned from both the Xorith and their own innovations, made the UHF fleet nearly invincible. The Taklor's defenses crumbled within hours. On the surface of Iraq, the UHF's ground forces landed, securing key industrial complexes and neutralizing Taklor military bases with minimal casualties. It was clear, humanity wasn't here to negotiate. They had come to establish dominance, and they had done it with ruthless efficiency. Once the system was secured, Captain Gray broadcasted a message to the Taklor leadership. This is your final chance. Join the UHF, and you will have a place in the new order of the galaxy. Resist, and you will be wiped from the stars, like so many others who opposed us. The response from the Taklor came swiftly. Their leaders, having realized the futility of resistance, sent a delegation to the negotiating table. They had been defeated, and they knew it. Humanity's power was undeniable. Within days, the Taklor agreed to an alliance with the UHF, trading their mineral resources for protection and a chance at a future under humanity's rule. The human fleet's victory was swift, and their expansion into the Orcs system marked the beginning of a new era for the Federation. With the Taklor now at their side, humanity had secured one of the richest systems in the galaxy. As the Vanguard moved on to the next target, Aiden stood on the observation deck, gazing at the stars ahead. This was just the beginning. Humanity's empire was growing faster than anyone had imagined. And though many were still skeptical, one thing was clear: there was no power in the galaxy that could stand against them. We're not just taking systems, Aiden said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. We're building a legacy. And with every new world they conquered, that legacy became more and more inevitable. The UHF's victory in the Orcs system had sent shockwaves across the galaxy. What had once seemed like an isolated act of defiance was rapidly becoming the beginning of something much larger, an unstoppable force. Humanity, once dismissed as a fledgling species among the stars, was now the rising power in the galaxy. The Taklor were the latest to join, but they would not be the last. Every day, more systems reached out, some with fear in their eyes, others with hope. But not everyone was willing to bend to the will of humanity. In the grand halls of the Galactic Council, a meeting was called. The once proud institution, a symbol of unity and peace across the galaxy, now felt more like a cornered animal. Word of the UHF's rapid expansion had spread like wildfire. Every race, from the oldest and most powerful to the newest and most primitive, was watching with a mixture of curiosity and dread. The council knew they had to act before the human threat grew beyond their control. We cannot allow this to continue, Speaker Ethel, the Vrelian representative, growled, his long, angular face twisted in a snarl. Humanity's unchecked growth must be stopped. They are destabilizing everything we have worked for. Peace is fragile, added Ambassador Solis of the Xalzar, their translucent skin shimmering in the dim light of the council chamber. If the Federation is allowed to grow unchecked, it will bring war and chaos. We must act now. The room was tense. Across the table, other representatives exchanged uneasy glances. The sentiment was clear. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity, and now their attempts to curb its rise were about to begin in earnest. Back in the heart of the UAF, President Claire Foster stood before a large display screen, reviewing the latest reports from the front lines. The Federation's expansion had been swift, but there were signs of resistance growing stronger. Several systems had banded together, alarmed by the UAF's tactics and their rapidly rising military power. The Council's response would soon be more than just talk. "We knew this was coming," Claire said, her voice cold as she addressed Captain Aiden Gray. "The Council will try to take us down before we're strong enough to defend ourselves. It's only a matter of time before we have to face them head-on." Aiden nodded grimly. "We've built this empire on the backs of those who believe in us. But the time for diplomacy is over. The Council sees us as a threat now, and they will not rest until we're crushed. Then it's time to show them just how much of a threat we can be," Claire said, determination flashing in her eyes. "We need to fortify our borders, secure our new alliances, and expand our military. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about winning this war before they can strike." The Federation's next move was calculated. Their fleet, now bolstered by Xorath warships and Tok'lar forces, began pushing into neighboring systems. The threat of war was real, but for the first time in galactic history, humanity was playing by its own rules, not the Council's. And every victory they claimed brought more allies, more systems that saw the Federation as the future, not the Council. On the front lines, General Marcos Rivera commanded a large force of human and allied ships. As his fleet crossed into a disputed system, the order came through. It was simple, but powerful. Take the system, or be destroyed. The UAF wasn't asking for permission anymore. Their presence in the galaxy was now undeniable, and they were prepared to back it up with force. As the battle began, the full might of the Federation was brought to bear. The alien fleets, though experienced, were no match for the combined power of humanity's technology, strategy, and raw will to survive. The UAF ships moved with ruthless precision, overwhelming the enemy forces one by one. No longer was humanity merely defending. They were taking the fight to those who had once ignored their potential. After the battle, as the wreckage of the defeated forces floated in the cold void of space, Aiden stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, watching the stars ahead. This wasn't just another victory. It was the latest step in humanity's rise. The galaxy had underestimated them. Now, the universe would have no choice but to reckon with the humans who had dared to challenge the old order. The Galactic Council was watching, but it was too late to stop them. The rising tide of humanity had already begun to sweep across the galaxy, and soon it would be too powerful to oppose. The days following the brutal victory in the disputed system were tense, both for the UHF and the Galactic Council. Humanity's swift and decisive strike had sent a clear message. They would not back down. The galaxy was entering a new phase, one where the old powers could no longer dictate the flow of events. The Council, though powerful, had lost their position as the undisputed force in the galaxy. The UHF had taken that mantle. The Council chambers were now an arena of heated debates. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy argued fiercely, with the same phrase echoing through their conversations: "How do we stop humanity?" Negotiation is no longer an option. Speaker Evil, the Vrelian, spat as he slammed his fist on the table. "They have crossed the line. If we do not act now, they will consume us all." Ambassador Solis of the Xalzar, though a more composed figure, shared the same sentiment. "We underestimated them. Humanity's military strategy and technological advancements have outpaced our own. If we don't strike soon, the Federation will be impossible to stop." An emergency meeting was called, and the decision was made. The Galactic Council would launch a counteroffensive. They would send a combined fleet, consisting of forces from the Salzar, the Vrelians, and other allied species, to halt humanity's expansion. Their plan was simple: strike at the heart of the Federation before it could become too powerful. On Earth, President Claire Foster stood in the command center of the Vanguard, now upgraded with new systems and more advanced weaponry. Aidan Gray, still as focused as ever, stood at her side, preparing for what was to come. "We knew the Council would come for us," Claire said quietly, watching the tactical maps unfold. "But this isn't just a battle for survival. This is the beginning of a new war. The first true galactic conflict where humanity will stand on its own." Aidan's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the incoming threat. "They've underestimated us before. They're doing it again. We have to be smarter than they are," Claire replied, her voice growing more determined. "We don't just fight with force. We fight with strategy. Let them come. We'll hit them before they have the chance to organize." The Federation was not just defending anymore. They were actively preparing for a preemptive strike, and their war machine was already in motion. With the combined might of the Torith and Taklor, the UHF had the numbers to make a real stand. But what truly gave humanity the edge was their innovative tactics, fighting smart, using guerrilla-style warfare, and leveraging their allies' strengths in unexpected ways. The Council's fleet approached the Federation's territory, a massive force that dwarfed the UHF's forces in size. But the humans were ready. They had laid traps, hidden forces in uncharted systems, and deployed stealth units equipped with advanced camouflage technology. As the battle erupted, it was clear the UHF had the upper hand in the initial stages. The first clash was devastating for the Council's fleet. As the combined alien forces engaged humanity, they were met with calculated strikes that crippled their command ships. The Vanguard's advanced targeting systems proved deadly, picking off key enemy vessels before they could retaliate. The Torith, who had once been seen as a primitive species, fought with unexpected ferocity, their ships maneuvering with precision and coordination that surprised even their human allies. "Keep them on the back foot," Aidan shouted, his voice ringing through the comms. "We can't let them regroup." Humanity's military strength was clear, but their real advantage lay in their adaptability. While the Council relied on traditional tactics, humanity was breaking every convention, outsmarting the enemy at every turn. The Council forces were too rigid, too predictable, and it became apparent that they were losing the initiative. Back on Earth, as the battle raged in the stars, Claire watched the data streams with growing satisfaction. Humanity's fleet was holding its ground, proving they could not only survive but excel in a galactic war. But she knew this was just the beginning. This battle was a small part of something much larger, and the Council was not going to back down so easily. "They're not finished yet," Claire said, her voice low. "We've won the first round, but there will be more battles to come." Aidan's face was set in grim determination. "And we'll be ready for them. We're not going to just survive this. We're going to win, one battle at a time." As the Council fleet retreated, battered but not broken, humanity stood victorious. For now, the storm of war had only begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. With each passing day, the Federation's influence grew stronger, its military more formidable. And as the galaxy washed, it became clear that the future belonged to humanity. In the wake of the first decisive victory over the Galactic Council's forces, humanity's rise seemed unstoppable. However, the Council had underestimated the resilience of its adversaries. What had begun as a simple series of tactical victories soon escalated into a galactic struggle, one that threatened to reshape the entire universe. The UHF's victory at the front lines, although a substantial blow to the Council, had not come without cost. Their fleets had sustained significant damage, and a few key systems were still not fully under control. In the aftermath, the Federation's leaders were faced with a stark reality. This was not a war that would be won through force alone. It was a war of attrition, one that required strategy, resources, and the will to outlast the opposition. Back on Earth, President Claire Foster and Captain Aidan Gray sat together in a dimly lit war room, discussing their next moves. The room was heavy with the weight of the decisions ahead. "We've made significant progress," Claire said, her voice low, her fingers tracing the edge of the holographic map. "But we can't rest. The Council's not going to accept defeat. They'll regroup, rebuild, and retaliate. It's only a matter of time before they launch another assault." Aidan nodded, staring at the display. "We're in enemy territory now. Every victory will come with a cost. We need to hit them where it hurts most, cut off their resources, and break their will to fight. We need to make them realize they cannot win this war." "What's our next move?" Claire asked, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "The Council's fleets are spread thin," Aidan replied, his gaze intense. "But there's one place we can strike that'll cripple them. The heart of their economic power, Vrelian space. They rely heavily on their trade routes and industrial networks. If we take their core industries offline, we'll cripple their ability to sustain their war effort." Claire leaned forward, analyzing the data. "Taking Vrelian space will send a message not only to the Council, but to every system watching. It'll show them that the Federation isn't just fighting for survival, it's fighting for control." "Exactly," Aidan said. "And we need to be quick. The Vrelians will have time to react if we let them regroup. We can't afford to wait for their reinforcements." The Federation quickly assembled a coalition fleet, drawing in not only human ships but forces from the Toreth and Taklor, whose loyalty to the UHF had grown stronger with every victory. Together, they set course for Vrelian space. As the fleet moved closer to its destination, tension filled the air. This would be their most audacious attack yet, and the stakes were higher than ever before. Meanwhile, on the Vrelian homeworld, Speaker Athel was preparing for a counterstrike of his own. His race had suffered immensely in the last engagement, but the Vrelians were not known for their submission. They were calculating and ruthless. Speaker Athel had spent months preparing for the inevitable, building alliances within the Council's ranks. He had mobilized reinforcements from his people and other neutral factions who now viewed humanity as a rising threat to their way of life. "We will not let the humans take Vrelian space," Speaker Athel said, his voice sharp with authority as he addressed his advisors. "They've taken too much already. This is where we make our stand." However, the Vrelians were too late. The Federation fleet arrived faster than anticipated, slipping past the outer defenses with lightning precision. The first wave of assault ships hit the industrial hub of Vrelian space, striking key production facilities and trade routes that the Vrelians relied on to fuel their war efforts. Within hours, entire sectors of Vrelian space were in chaos. Factories that once churned out the finest weapons and technology for the Council's forces now lay in ruins. Trade routes were severed, leaving their economy reeling. And as the Federation ships moved deeper into Vrelian territory, it became clear that the Council had no hope of stopping them. "We've crippled their industrial heart," Aidan said over the comms, his voice tinged with satisfaction. "Their economy is on the brink of collapse." Claire's eyes remained locked on the holoscreen, studying the chaos unfolding across the Vrelian systems. "This is a blow they won't recover from. The Council will be forced to come to the table." But the victory came with its own set of complications. While the Federation's attack had been a success, it had also made a bold declaration. The UHF had struck at the very foundation of the Council's power, and in doing so, they had triggered a response that would not be confined to mere diplomacy. The Galactic Council was beginning to realize that humanity was not a force they could contain, and they were preparing for one final push to eradicate the Federation's growing influence once and for all. As Claire sat in silence, watching the reports come in, she knew the battle was far from over. The war had entered a new phase, one that would require more than just military might. The Council was desperate, and desperation led to unpredictable actions. The coming days would test humanity's resolve in ways they had never imagined. "We've taken their heart," Claire said quietly. "Now we prepare for the storm they're about to unleash." The Federation's attack on Vrelian space had shaken the very foundation of the Galactic Council. The crippled Vrelian economy sent ripples of panic through the galaxy. For the first time, the galaxy had witnessed humanity's true power. Yet, despite their losses, the Galactic Council refused to submit. Desperation had gripped their hearts, and they were preparing for their final strike, determined to bring humanity to its knees. Back on Earth, President Claire Foster and Captain Aidan Gray had watched their strategy unfold with grim satisfaction. The Vrelian industrial heart was in ruins, their economy on the brink of collapse, and yet the war was far from over. The Council was mobilizing its forces for what would likely be the largest and most devastating offensive the galaxy had ever seen. It was clear, humanity had to be crushed before it could rise any further. "The Council is throwing everything they have at us," Claire said, her voice steady, but filled with the weight of the inevitable conflict ahead. "They'll come at us with everything. We can't just win a battle. We have to win this war." Aidan's eyes were hard, his mind already calculating the next move. "We can't afford to wait for them to strike first. If they hit us, we'll be fighting a war on two fronts. We need to finish this before they can muster their final forces." The UHF leadership made a bold decision. They would take the fight directly to the heart of the Galactic Council, their homeworld, the Council's seat of power. The risks were immense, but the payoff would be even greater. By striking at the center of their leadership, they could force the Council to capitulate, breaking their resolve, and possibly ending the war. The Federation fleet, bolstered by allies from the Xorath, Taklor, and other subjugated species, began its march toward the heart of Council space. The journey was perilous, crossing into heavily defended territory. Every sensor in the galaxy would be on alert, but humanity had learned how to fight smart. Stealth tactics, misdirection, and rapid strikes had become their hallmarks, and with each passing day, their forces grew stronger, more unified in their cause. As they neared the Council's capital system, the first signs of resistance appeared. The Council's fleet, once a powerful and unified force, now looked fractured and desperate. They threw everything they had at the approaching Federation armada, launching waves of ships in an attempt to block the path. But humanity was ready. The battle began in the shadow of the Council's homeworld, and it was brutal. The Federation fleet, using their superior tactics, swiftly dismantled the Council's forces. Zalzar fighters darted between the enemy ships, their energy shields flashing in the distance, while the Xorath warships, once underestimated, delivered powerful barrages that shattered the enemy's ranks. Humanity's flagship, the Vanguard, led the charge, cutting through the opposition with unmatched precision. Every ship in the UHF fleet fought with one singular goal in mind: to end this war, to ensure that humanity would be the dominant power in the galaxy. As the battle raged, Claire stood in the command center, watching as their forces decimated the last remnants of the Council's fleet. The sheer power and scale of the Federation's advance were impossible to ignore. There was no turning back now. The galaxy would never be the same. "I've ordered the fleet to move toward the planet," Aidan said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "It's time to end this." The Vanguard and its fleet moved toward the Council's capital world, a planet teeming with the highest concentration of political and military leadership. With the Council's fleets scattered and in retreat, there was no one left to stop them. The time had come for humanity to deliver their final blow. On the surface of the capital, the Council's leadership was in chaos. The destruction of their military forces, combined with the impending arrival of the Federation, had fractured their unity. It was clear that their long-standing rule over the galaxy was coming to an end. They had no choice but to attempt one last desperate defense. But it was futile. As the Federation forces descended upon the capital, the resistance was scattered, and the Council's leaders were left scrambling for any remaining means of survival. In the midst of the final confrontation, Speaker Ethel, the Vrelian representative, was captured. He had been one of the fiercest opponents of humanity, and his capture sent a powerful message to the galaxy. The old powers had been broken. In the final moments of the battle, as the vanguard hovered above the Council's capital, Claire addressed the galaxy through the Federation's broadcast network. "The Galactic Council has failed," she said, her voice clear and resolute. "This war ends now. Humanity will no longer be subjugated. We will rebuild the galaxy, and we will do so under the banner of freedom and unity. No more oppression. No more division. The future belongs to us all." With those words, the final remnants of the Council's leadership were overthrown. The Federation had triumphed. Humanity had forged its own empire, built on the foundations of resilience, strategy, and unity. As Claire watched the news unfold, she knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was a vast and complicated place, filled with new challenges and opportunities. But one thing was certain: humanity's place in the stars was no longer up for debate. The storm had passed, and in its wake, a new empire stood strong.